So what are the current trends within the pro-life movement? I'm Ben. I'm here with Josh, our producer, and Dan is in traffic.
He is.
You know, we're going to pull the curtain back a little bit. And
is he stuck on 77 like everyone else?
Yeah,
we're
here? Supposed to be recording, and I just get a text from Dan's like, record one without me.
So here we are.
And I'm glad we're actually doing this because I have been thinking a lot about the pro-life issues in our world today.
Huh.
Post-Dobbs. I mean, I think Dobbs decision, I think one of the things that we see is this became a really big political issue for Democrats to drive them to the polls. And now what we're seeing is Republicans are taking their foot off the pedal on the pro-life. This is what I'm observing. And you are in the middle of it, so I want to hear from you about this. And now a lot of states are just creating these amendments or laws into their constitution about abortion rights. Yeah. So as you sit here in 2024 and you're just kind of like wide angle view of what's going on, what happens? Like, what are you thinking about all these things that are happening today?
Everything has changed. I don't know what phase of the pro-life movement we should call, but it's definitely a different phase. It's either phase 2 or phase 3, but I think we should kind of think like we don't know anything anymore. Everything is different. Every angle of the pro-life movement needs to, in some ways, adjust their strategy based on what's happening. So, for example, there is now, and this relates to the state laws, like one of the big hurdles with the state laws is what used to be a very academic question has now become a very, very real practical question, which is how do you write pro-life legislation, like substantive abortion bans, in a way that makes it clear that if the mother tragically has a life-threatening pregnancy situation, like a tubal pregnancy, that she should be able to intervene. Yeah. Like there's fights about what you call that. Yeah. But like we never really needed to resolve that in the movement.
You know what it reminds me of? It's kind of like people that play the lottery, like, I just want to win the lottery. And then they win the lottery and then they're like, what am I going to do with all this money? And now they've got all these problems in their life because they won all this money. And it feels like the pro-life movement was like, tear down, overturn Roe, and they overturned it, and now it's kind of like,
None of us thought it would happen. That's the thing, is we all knew, or almost all of, professional pro-life leader types knew you can't really do anything legally until you overturn Roe. The issue with Roe is that it was, when you really combine Roe with KCV Planned Parenthood, it makes it basically impossible for pro-lifers to pass substantive legislation. You can pass little incremental things and they make a difference. And I'm pro most of those things, but it's not going to be really substantive. Yeah. And I've been thinking about like Supreme Court math for 20 years now in this career. And I did not think that Roe would be overturned at least in the next 2 or 3 decades, if not my lifetime. That has not been like, I'm planning on when that happens, and here's what are going to be the next things. Like, that didn't seem likely for a bunch of reasons. But basically now, as a result of a really long political Supreme Court chess game, we have ended up in a situation that I think historically, when we look back, we can see times like this where you just ended up with a lot less social unification.
Yeah, like what brings the pro-life movement together now? Because it was almost like it was combined to overturn Roe. And so now that there is this post-Roe, post-Dobbs reality, it just feels like, it almost feels like for so many conservative evangelical Christians, the pro-life thing was what they hung their hat on. This is why we vote Republican. Yeah. Well, the Republicans are giving them reasons that that's no longer an issue for them because it was the least pro-life stance, I think, in 40 years, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what you mean by pro-life. So the GOP has largely taken the really substantive pro-life legislation off the party platform. So it's a lot less about we're going to try to overturn Roe, we're going to try to ban abortion, we're going to try to pass functionally another 14th Amendment type thing or something, to something like basically what Trump has been saying now for a while, which is kind of like, let's let the states kind of do whatever they want to do, and I'm all for the states and all for it. It's kind of like, just back off of me, please. Kind of a thing.
And I think it's honestly, if you go to the Dobbs decision, I know we're getting in the weeds here of Supreme Court decisions, but this is the reason why they overturned Roe, or the Dobbs decision was, this is not a fundamental, this has to be decided by the people of the states. And so one of the reasons so now it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, then every state gets to decide how pro-life or how pro-abortion they're going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you have to either kind of end up on the side of kind of saying, there's kind of the Trumpy kind of way of talking, which is sort of kind of a, look, let's try to be more unified, and let's be more unified by letting the states do whatever they're going to do. Then there's some pro-lifers that are like, look, wait a minute. If we think that abortion kills babies, then why am I being told I'm supposed to be perfectly fine with some states saying we can't kill babies, but then California and New York and some of these are like sanctuary states where they will pay for you to fly in from out of state and kill your baby. Or the things like Hulu or Disney Plus, or like there's different companies that are like,
if you work for us, we will fly you wherever.
Yeah, they will back off the maternity paternity care stuff, which is like crazy to me in 2024 that you could do that and have that be politically correct, but be like, we will pay for you to actually go and have an abortion. So it's like, so then what do we do? But going back to what I was saying, it's like, I think this is part of the problem is, I think this is kind of like prohibition in the early 1900s, which was another situation where culture and laws, and one moved way further than the other.
So we should probably back up and explain prohibition.
Yes. So prohibition. So the early 1900s, and I'm not an expert on this, but I've learned some things, and it was pretty kind of agreed upon. There's a lot more agreement in the early 1900s.
Yes.
That there was a problem with hard liquor.
Yeah.
There was kind of the societal issue, and part of that involved like there was this like, it was really hard for everyone to work back then. It's the Great Depression. So guys are working these horrible, horrible factory jobs, and then they're going to the bar with their friends and getting drunk, and then going home and beating their wives and kids. And so there was like...
it was a moral problem.
It's a problem. This is morally not okay. But then when they actually went to pass the legislation, they also banned beer and wine. And everyone's like, wait a minute, it's not what we, it's like, that's not what they were for. And so it went too far in front of the other. I think they will always go in front of the other a little bit, one or the other. You've got Martin Luther King Jr. in the letter from a Birmingham jail. Like, I'm not trying to force the white man to love me. I just want to make him so he can't lynch me. Like, he's saying, he was prioritizing laws. And sometimes that is the right thing. And sometimes we've got to try to change hearts and minds before we can really pass the laws and have them either stay substantively passed or at least not result in kind of what we're seeing now where people can't even talk to each other about the topic. So like, this is just kind of, there's kind of an it is what it is situation here where like there's no uncorking this thing. So, like this is going to be tough.
This is going to be tough. And so we're in the little bit of a wild west in the pro-life movement. So let me ask you, this is kind of a hypothetical. And I want to hear your thoughts and opinions on the potentiality of what the future might look like. So if you could choose, I know this is like two horrible choices I'm going to give you.
You're going to do Sophie's choice.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a Sophie's choice situation. So would you rather kind of just this be the states' rights, and there's certain states that have banned abortion, certain states is literally partial birth abortion, and it's just kind of like states have to create their own rules? Or if you could choose that, or there's a nationwide agreed upon law that allows abortion up to, let's just say, 9 weeks.
Ooh, you took that a different direction than I thought. Okay, so we've got to be okay with, so like some states can completely ban abortion versus the compromise, the federal compromise is a 9-week ban. And would that include like Alabama and places like that have more restrictive, they've got to back up to 9 weeks?
They got to back up.
That's interesting.
So the reason, I think I know how I would answer it, but I think there's like, politics is the world of compromise.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, and that's where I get a lot of my hate emails from pro-lifers who don't under that there is we've got to try to figure out how do we work with the other side. So I've got a friend named Charles Camosi, a philosophy professor from Fort, really smart guy, and we've been involved with him on certain things. But he wrote a book long before Dobbs called Beyond the Abortion Wars, where he was basically pitching like, here is a potential way that Republicans and Democrats could come together and find basically we both got to have a big compromise. Yeah. And so the compromise was, it was along the lines of we get a pretty substantive abortion ban with rape and incest exceptions and maybe a few other exceptions. But then also we've got to give them all kinds of paternity and maternity care and some of the things that they've been really pushing for. If we're going to really help people, then it's okay, we're going to give you a bunch of those things and you give us this and we'll see if maybe we can come up with some kind of a better world that at least looks different than the world that we're seeing right now. So I would say one of the things that we have to remember as pro-lifers when we're thinking about a thought experiment like this is that a lot of us have sort of bought into the belief that a lot of the abortions are later term abortions. Like a lot of, if you happen to see pro-life images of abortions, those are probably not first trimester pictures. Right. If a lot of times, even fetal development pictures, we don't usually show first trimester. So 90+% of abortions have been in the first trimester. There are a lot of abortions that happen within that 9 or 10 weeks. And so some people are like, wow, that sounds like maybe you could it's I don't even know what percentage of the abortions that would ban at 9 weeks off the top of my head. Yeah. So that's part of it. I definitely, a lot of where my heart is as I look at the problem is I want to see us preserve this republic. I want to see us figure out how to at least move forward the next few years and have things be more unified and not more disunified. The direction things are sort of going on.
You're wishing for a really difficult thing. So here's how I answered it, Josh. For me, the choice is I want to keep leaving it to the states because here's my fear if a compromise happens. Because I really believe you probably would get about 2/3 of the American population to agree to a federal law allowing abortion up to us, because nobody wants either extremes. I think that's what we're finding. Yes. And I know that's, as Christians, we do have this very strong conviction of, no, it is about life, it begins at conception. Right. And, but I think you and I both know there are Christians that have abortions because of, the reality of having this child and I don't want it. And that's horrible, but that's just the reality we live in. But philosophically, convictionally, we are staunchly pro-life, not willing to any compromise. Right. My fear is that we will lose the and I hate to say cultural wars, but we will lose in some the hearts and minds of people by allowing this kind of middle ground, and everyone just kind of accepts abortion. It's okay, but we're not killing fully formed children. And to me, that can be one of the most dangerous things is that there's actually kind of an all agreed upon compromise that allows abortion to become legal across the board, and then all of a sudden it feels like
it would just get normalized.
How do we fight the normalization of that? I mean, it already is a part, but it's always kind of it still is a strong issue for people to vote and talk about. Yeah. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I basically agree with you. For sure, realistically, 9 weeks is not where the compromise would you would not get, I think, most of the country to agree on a 9 week. I think it would have to. You're talking about maybe 12 to 15 weeks before we're in real, and that's past the first trimester. We're past where most of the abortions are happening at that point anyway. And so, but
I think what you're saying is, yeah, we're kind of in this murky waters right now. We're all trying to figure out. So
here's something we should be thinking about is what. Let's just talk about the church.
Yeah,
because the pro-life movement is a little bit more complicated than that.
I want to turn our attention from politics to the church because the reality is we live in our own world of how do we disciple our people? How do we love our neighbors? There's the reality of living out as the body of Christ in our world today in this realm of abortion.
I want to know what that should look like. So, because the pro-life, there are atheist pro-lifers. There's a whole, the pro-life movement is becoming a more homogenous place, which is great. I'm really supportive of that, and we're trying to push that. But I'm looking at the church sometimes when I'm in my less optimistic, happy, moments. I know that there are a lot of people that are way less open to the church or have left the church over what they see us supporting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I want, what does it look like to be Jesus followers? What does it look like? How do we point to Jesus in a political time like this, where you have, the quote unquote pro-life side, and all of what that is representing, and we're supposed to be totally fine with that and connect ourselves and hitch ourselves to that wagon, or hitch ourselves to the wagon that is very, very, Kamala Harris is about to make abortion a huge part of her campaign, because it's actually one of Trump's weakest points because of what we've been saying.
So I think that, I always try to like put myself in saying, and I know Jordan Peterson always talks about this. If you were a German during Nazi Germany, most of you would have gone along with the slaughter of the Jews.
Or at least been silent.
You would have been silent, at least. Same thing with the slavery in the southern half of the United States. That most people would have just been like, I don't like it, but hey, it's just...
We would have tolerated it.
We would have tolerated it. And I think that's where I never want to get to the point where we just kind of feel like, man, that's just is kind of what is happening.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we are bothered by that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That we're bothered by the fact that abortion is happening, but I also want to be able to, for us to say, like, let's help you. Like, I've been a part of this. So I'll just background. Liz and I, my wife and I, we used to go down to the abortion clinic about once a week. Back in the early days, yes. I think every Christian should at least go to an abortion clinic to experience. I'm not saying you've got to say or do anything.
Right.
And one of the things that made me, there were times, the emotions I felt the most down there were sorrow and anger. Okay? Now, sorrow towards what these people are doing. Right? Like I see the reality of death happening so often as people are driving in. Yeah. What made me angry was two things. Sometimes the people on the other side, because there's counter protesters or counter people that are there to kind of whatever they call them, security, or typically what you'd see is a women's studies.
Escorts is what they call them. They're clinic escorts.
Typically it's like a women's studies group from local colleges there, and they're
passionately pro-choice volunteer that they are so much about this that they're going to be, I'm going to try to help this be a less horrible day for you. And
so my anger would either be feeling towards the mocking of them towards what's happening, or what would also make me angry is pro-life people that would say and do things that were just so ugly and so mean, and so I was just like, I do not want to be seen on this side with that guy.
Yeah.
And so
that's a challenge because the other side doesn't bifurcate the way that you just did. They don't know that there are different groups here, that we're not all fine with it. We made a talk about counseling training a while ago, and Jacob said this great thing. It's like, look, you could drive by the abortion clinic that he saw about counsel in front of me. He's like, there are days where you could pass by, okay, those two are doing the rosary, they're super quiet, and they're super sweet, they're over there, they're not bothering anybody. You've got this guy over here, like the way across the street, graphic signs, bullhorns, chasing women into the clinic. This person over here, he's doing his best, the sidewalk counsel, they're doing 40 days for life, so they've all got the same shirt. It's like this, you can have this whole thing, and the pro-choice people going by is like, oh, look, one group. And it's like, no, those are different people who think really, really differently.
Very different.
Sometimes.
And I think that's, so I think because we've got to wrap up our conversation here. To me, what I would hope is, if you're going to be someone, be the person who's leading with love, but never backing down from the truth. Yeah. It's that grace and truth thing.
Yeah.
It's how can we love you? And that's one of the things I love. One of the most amazing experiences my wife ever got a chance was to counsel this one woman away from an abortion. And there's nothing like that joy. There's nothing like that joy knowing that God used you as an instrument to, with love, engage with this person, and she chose life. And now there's And now they're getting support. I think one of the things I do love about some of the things that are happening in our own city is there is a network and a support system of baby showers, church adoptions. Like, you are definitely not alone.
Yeah.
And there's a number of different pro-life ministries in our own city that are doing that. So I want to give kudos to those ministries.
Yep.
I think we just need to make sure that we do not compromise. We don't get lukewarm towards the abortion issue, but we're also not going to be I'm going to yell and scream at you and demean you until you not have an abortion. Like, that just will never, ever work.
It's not going to change any minds. And so it's like, you can, at least pragmatically, we can be like, look, if you actually want to have an impact and help people to not think like that, then don't be so off-putting that you're like, all the things that you're saying, just make them kind of like stay in there. Like, how can we be a people where I think people change their minds because they want to become like us. Like when I'm in a long-term friendship with a pro-choice person, like, I think what's happening is I am removing hurdles between them and whatever position. I don't think I change their mind. I think they change their own mind.
Yes.
I remove hurdles, and eventually they actually find my view more attractive than theirs.
Because ideologically and philosophically, we have a stronger argument. Yes. It's just some of the, like you said, the hurdles of whether it's personal experience or
there's some major emotional hurdles, there's some major philosophical, government-related hurdles, but it's like, if we can deal with those, then we've got the stronger argument.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, this has been a good conversation. I don't think we've accomplished anything, but I think we are more. I think what I wanted to have this conversation with you, Josh, was I wanted our church to really wrestle with this, to say, the danger of the church is now, we're post Roe v. Wade, let's just move on with life. It's like, no, there is so much work to be done, and there's just a lot of crazy things going on.
That was a checkpoint, not the finish line.
Oh, that's such a good...
It's a checkpoint, not the finish line. And so
Love that.
Pray for your local pro-lifers, because our lives are probably so much worse than they used to be. It's so much harder. Everything is so much harder now than it used to be. Yeah. And then be the pro-life people, the advocates, the Christians that are going to help people to want to become more pro-life, or to follow Christ.
Yes.
As opposed to the other way around.
Amen. That's good. Well, this has been another episode of Life Talks. We love talking about these kinds of issues that you might not hear. They're controversial. They're deep, but I hope that we help you think and act biblically as a result of our conversations here today. Thanks again for joining us at Life Talks. We'll talk to you next time.